Hi, welcome. My name is Carlos Rodriguez Iturria. I am part of For You and Your Customers. We are a consulting boutique. We have around 20 different offices across Europe and APAC. And obviously, we specialize around all aspects of data. And around data, obviously, API security is one of our strongest core capabilities. So in this session, I'm going to be sharing with you things that you have to consider when basically you have to protect and secure your APIs. Okay? I want to start this chat with one line that I really enjoy. It says, "A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not on the branch, but on its own wings." I think I really like this line. I think it is profound. I have used it personally many times in my life. But when it comes to API security, I think it fits perfectly. Why? Well, let me tell you that no matter what you do, there is no way you can avoid cyber attacks. There is nothing you can do to avoid cyber attacks. But you can avoid data breaches. It is exactly in the same way how solution architects design software, design solutions based on failures that are going to happen eventually. It is not an if, it is when things will fail. In this case, it is not about if we are going to be having a cyber attack, it is when we are going to receive a cyber attack. And when that happens, obviously, we want to ensure that we are not data breach. Okay, we have seen statistics like this. We know APIs are important. We know APIs are everywhere. Especially in the last few years, APIs adoption has exploded. Just in the last year, we saw an exponential growth of 200% with the use of APIs. And because APIs are truly providing that level of business agility and speed, well, it is obvious that there are going to be a lot of new APIs coming all the time, and there are going to be a lot of evolution on the existing APIs. This is creating a problem that we call API sprawl effect. And basically what this means is that we don't have, IT doesn't have enough capacity or capability in order to continue ensuring that all single APIs are properly protected and secure. It is basically becoming out of control. And this is creating a big problem because now we know that, just a simple number, like 76% of organizations are telling us that they have been breached in the last couple of years. And, I have a suspicion that basically a lot of organizations that are saying, no, we haven't been breached, is probably because they don't even know that they have been breached. So this is a big, big problem. It is going to get worse before it can get better. So what happens? Well, we are getting very numb at seeing news like this one. The reality is that a lot of organizations are getting hacked and they are getting data breached. And, I have two hats when I see this type of news. The first hat is basically around from an end user point of view. As an end user, my data, my personally identifiable information is with banks, with telecommunication companies, it is with insurance companies, it is in a lot of places. And I get nervous and I get anxiety when I see that these organizations where I have contracts, they are being data breached. And every time that I receive an SMS, and it is clear that it is a scam, but the person is referring to me by name, I get nervous because you have my name, what else do you have? Well, probably a lot of information, that gets me nervous as an end user. And it is something that most of us share. But then I have another hat as a technologist. And as a technologist, I get excited because it is a great opportunity to fix this problem. And we can. And I have tried. I have been around this space for the last few years. And my understanding has continued evolving, and also the technology that I've been using has continued evolving to a point that now I can help you to know what you have to do in order to avoid data breaches. So before we understand that, let me first tell you 5 common reasons why organizations get data breached. Okay, the first one, known vulnerabilities. Well, if we think about it, most, and I would say all of them, but I don't want to get wrong. So I would say the majority of the incidents with organizations that basically they get hacked and there is a data breach, in most cases, there were unknown vulnerabilities. And by the time they were known, it was after the hack attack, after the data breach. It's always, we see that in the news. It's always like, oh yes, we left an API, it was poorly protected, we didn't know it existed, but we have basically rectified everything and now we are more secure. Well, we should have done it before it was a known vulnerability. We should have known about those unknown vulnerabilities before the actual data breach. Then number 2, rogue, zombie, or shadow APIs. Because of number 1, we tend to leave a lot of APIs that are just living there running when they shouldn't. APIs, like any software, should have a life cycle. They need to have a life cycle where they are designed, they are basically developed, tested, pushed into production. They should have a life, and then they should be retired or evolve into another version. But then the reality, because remember, API sprawling, there are so many of these. So we are losing capability to continue evolving all of these APIs. So what happens is that there are a lot of zombie APIs that we don't even know they exist. And these ones are the most likely to be responsible for data breaches. Okay. Number 3, external exposures. Credentials, keys. Well, when we believe that we are protecting our APIs because everything is properly authenticated and authorized, then it's fine. But what happens when those credentials are out of our control? Things will obviously be exposed. We need to think about that too. Number 4, operator errors. This is, again, one of the most common reasons, again, because IT is very overwhelmed when it comes to API sprawling. Well, there are going to be misconfigurations. There are going to be reasons in which APIs are not properly protected, or they don't have the strong mechanisms that are going to prevent all types of API security and protection. But how can we know if we are so busy? How can we know that we are leaving some things that are not completely protected? Maybe we are not leaving doors open, but maybe we are leaving windows open. How can we know that? Something needs to tell us that we are leaving those things unprotected. And then number 5, undiscovered vulnerabilities and bugs. The way I see these problems, data breaches, they happen in two phases of the life cycle of an API. One, it is when an API is already running in production, serving customers, serving end users, okay? There might be vulnerabilities, and we need to have something that is going to tell us there is a vulnerability going on. But also, there is going to be that stage before it was in production, when we are developing and testing those APIs. And that's when we need to know that we are pushing those vulnerabilities into production. There should be enough ability to discover these vulnerabilities before they are deployed. Obviously, these 5 challenges come into our 5 main pillars on what things you have to do and you need to think about when it comes to protecting the full enterprise inventory of your APIs. Okay, so in this slide, I just want you to start thinking, as you listen to me going through all of these 5 areas, I want to ask you a favor. Just think about your organization and whether you are ticking all of these things that I'm going to cover. If at any point you are missing 1 tick or 2 or more, well, unfortunately, you are on a higher risk of having a data breach. Okay, let's start with the first one, enterprise API inventory. Number one question that I always start when I'm talking to my clients is this one. How many APIs do you have? From the answer, I can read a lot. It can be from, we don't know, which tells me that's bad, that's very bad. But it can also come with numbers like, we have 100 APIs, or we have 200 APIs. Like, seriously, like, what are the chances that you have 100 or 200 APIs? It is most likely going to be something like 154 or 213, regardless of the number that they tell me, I know from experience that at least there is going to be 30 to 40% more APIs that they don't know. The second question that I ask them around this is, okay, you have 100 APIs. Okay, that's good. Question number two, how many APIs do you have that you don't know they exist? And they laugh because they think it's a silly question, or that I am basically just telling the wrong question. But it's a provocative question, because I want them to know that there is a number larger than zero of APIs that exist that they don't know exist. Okay, and in the past couple of years, I've been very I've been evolving my understanding and the way I'm helping organizations to overcome this problem. And probably you have heard me talking about, like, I go to the customer documentation and basically I try to catalog, like discover and catalog all of these API catalog. Well, it is not wrong, but it is incomplete, because the reality is that most of our customers don't even know about these APIs. So obviously they are not going to be documented. So that is something that we are never going to find from the actual documentation. So what do we have to do? Well, that's in order to get the full list of APIs, those that you know exist and those that you don't know exist, we need to go into the actual network. We need to go into the actual traffic of the request and the communication, the intra-communication between services, and then we need to capture all of that in the catalog of API inventory. And by the way, an API can come from many different sources. Like, it is not just REST APIs. It can be SOAP web services. It can be, microservices running on Kubernetes that are being exposed through an SDK. Absolutely everything that provides data can be hacked, and it can be a potential data breach. So what do we do? Well, I don't call them APIs. I call them data points. Everything that is a potential data point should be part of the enterprise API inventory. So number two, uncover API vulnerabilities. What do we do once we have the full enterprise API inventory, the real one? And there is, by the way, a shocking news every time that we show this to our customers. Nowadays, we have the right technology, we have the right tooling to show the real number of APIs, those that you know exist and those that you don't know exist. And then after that, we basically show, we let software that was designed to identify vulnerabilities to tell us what is in red, what is in orange, what is in green. What is the highest risk right now you will be data breached, and what are the things that you need to do in order to fix this problem. That's what we call posture management. And right now we have technology that exists today that basically help us to go and remediate all of these problems one by one. Again, at the beginning, there is shocking news to our customers. They're like, I didn't know about all of these things. How long do we have before we get data breach? Like, let's go and fix all of these things quickly. Okay. Number three, API attack management. As I said at the beginning of this presentation, there is nothing you can do to avoid cyber attacks, but there are things you can do to prevent data breaches. So eventually you are going to have an attack. It is what your solution, your API security solution tells you that you can do in order to stop that attack without human intervention. And today there is technology that exists that can give you that capability. But in order to give you that capability, basically that technology, that piece of technology needs to communicate back to the API gateways and change rules to stop traffic that is potential an attack right now. It needs to go into the firewall rules and modify those firewall rules to stop traffic to going through from a potential attacker. All of these things have to be in near real time without human interventions, because it might happen at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. There is not going to be someone human to be analyzing all of these things. And by the way, it is impossible. All of these things, I tend to think about it as an antivirus on your laptop. You can take all the precautions to don't go to certain websites or don't try to download certain attachments to keep you protected. But at some point, there might be a virus that can come to your laptop. And there is going to be an antivirus that can detect those patterns. And it can say, there is a virus, and this is the type of virus. I'm going to stop it right now. Exactly the same capability needs to be at your infrastructure level to stop those attacks in real time. So it doesn't matter. Well, it is important, obviously, that you follow certain rules, and that's what number 2 comes into place, like that posture management. But just imagine like that even you make mistakes around having consecutive IDs, okay? But even if you do that, well, and there is an attack coming in, probably you are going to breach 10 customer data, but you are not going to breach 10 million customer data, okay? Number 4, post-mortem analysis. As I said, there's nothing you can do to avoid data breach. It all comes to basically knowing what are the measures in place to stop that attack, to avoid a data breach. When it comes to post-mortem analysis, you need to know if a potential attack created any data breach or not. Ideally, no. Ideally, it is going to show you, no, you were hacked. Yes, there was an attack, but you did not breach any data. But in some cases, unfortunately, there might be some data that was breached. It was leaked. Your solution needs to tell you it was this record, it was this data, and this is basically the level of risk. And these are the steps that you need to do in order to basically remediate these problems. That is basically what we call post-mortem analysis. And unfortunately, most of organizations don't have that capability at all. And that's probably why they don't even know when they are being attacked, or if they were data breached. And number 5, as I said, penetration testing is very important. And again, unfortunately, that's one of those areas that are hard to do by yourself. Like, how do you know? Like, I am putting OAuth 2.0 on everything, like, for my API gateways. I think that's probably enough because I have firewalls, I have WAFs, I have my API gateways, I should be protected. But the reality is that probably you are still missing some gaps as part of your API development. So before you push that into production as part of your CI/CD pipeline, you should basically run against pen testing that is going to identify those vulnerabilities on your APIs before they are pushed into production. So you can remediate those before they are actually deployed. So as I said, if you can think about any of these areas that where basically you are not ticking, well, unfortunately, you are on a high risk of being data breached. As I mentioned at the beginning, my name is Carlos. Areas that I love talking about is API security, keto, lifestyle, calisthenics, and by the way, I believe we live in a simulation. If you want to know more about it, just take you can use that QR code to basically get to my personal information and contact me, and I would be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.